The Brew House was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewHouse.com. Hi, everyone, and welcome into the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. Thanks for joining us. I'm Bill Pucko. Pleasure to be joined this week by a first-timer on the show, Bill Scharr. For the people who don't know that name, he's the Jake Zembeck before there was a Jake Zembeck. Class of 1986 Canandaigua, tremendous high school quarterback, Syracuse University. Good to have you here, Bill.
Good to be here.
Mike Catalana, welcome back.
Yep, good to be
here.
here.
Duffy, show us the jersey. I love this one.
This might be my favorite one. It's the Rochester Jeffersons jersey.
Yeah.
The original NFL franchise in Rochester. Played from 1920 to 1925 in the NFL, and I don't think they won a game.
Yeah.
Legit. They were the Mike Catalana of NFL franchises.
Bill covered the team. I was there a year after it started.
Yeah. They were a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, I'm sure.
And you fit into that very nicely.
Poured into it, Bill.
Billy, you go back some, not that far, obviously. Look at the game today, and you must obviously look at it differently than we do because you're a D1 quarterback and you know what you were doing out there. Especially the position of quarterback. How has the game developed since you were there?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I mean, a lot. I think the quarterback's being asked to do a lot more today than when we were there in terms of physical abilities, in terms of running and being able to throw and run at the same time. So, the Deshaun Watsons of the world, they make a huge impact because they put such a threat. Donnie McPherson back in my day, I backed Donnie up, and he was kind of that guy before that guy became popular, really. So, he threw the ball okay, but he was such a threat. I mean, Donnie ran a 4.4, so faster than most of our running backs. So he was truly a dual threat. So today I think they're being asked to do more physically from that standpoint. And the game itself is just, I think, a lot of the offensives, they'll spread things out so much that it's really advantageous for the quarterback that has that ability to produce numbers, that you're seeing from some
What do you think
guys.
of that game the other night, the championship game?
Yeah, it was a gutsy call at the end to do that, to think, hey, we got to, quite honestly, if he didn't make that throw, does he run or does he throw it out? There was 1 second left after that play happened, so that was really cutting it close.
Okay, so I want to know what Bill thinks about this, and Pat and I sort of discussed it a little bit on Twitter. If I was Nick Saban on that next to last play on the touchdown, I think I would have had my defenders tackle every receiver on the field.
It's funny because I heard somebody discuss that, and the defensive mindset to that is that we are the best defense in the country. We're going to defend you. Now, they just happened to call it a great play. I mean, you saw how wide open he was.
Yeah.
So they were discussing similar to, in a basketball environment, right? Where, let's just foul him so he can't hit a 3, and if he hits the 2, we still win the game.
Well, I think you run the risk of a whiff, don't you?
Now, he's right. I mean, if you miss on one of those 3 tackles, they win the game.
But Bill made a point, too, if he's coming out to the side there, if he makes that decision to run to the end zone, he doesn't know for sure they're going to call the penalty. He has to make it in or the game ends before he gets there. So it would have been interesting because it would have then it would have been fun to say, what does Dabo do at the goal line, 1 play left, field goal to tie it or kick it? It didn't matter, he got the touchdown.
Does Watson make a good pro? Do we think?
You know what? Physically, he's got the tools. The knock on him is he doesn't throw as well as he should potentially to be at that level. But you look at the athletic quarterbacks historically. Is he a Vince Young or is he a Russell Wilson? Russell Wilson uses his feet not so much to run, but to really extend the play and get out. He knows how to not take a hit. I don't know if you remember, when Flutie was with the Bills, he never took a solid hit. He always knew just enough how to get out of the way, and that's how he played so long.
Yeah.
And he was smart about it. Some like the Vince Youngs of the world, I don't know if Vince Young peeled back the onion deep enough on the playbook to get what he needed to get. Physically, he was just a specimen. So does Deshaun Watson, have the ability to do that? I think it comes down to who his quarterback's coach is going to be, what the need is on the team, and how much freedom they give him to use his feet to extend a play, not say, okay, Randall Cunningham, we're going to have you run. And Randall Cunningham did it before a lot of people did it, but in my opinion, his career was cut a little bit short because he ran too much.
Yeah.
So I think he has the ability, but I think it all depends on his situation.
It's a situation. Could a team be patient with him, which doesn't seem to happen. You draft a guy early, man, everybody wants him in there. But I think the biggest thing is what we saw with Tyrod this year. Tyrod had the ability to run and to take off, but I think his issue was once he got out of the pocket, was he always looking downfield to make the option of get rid of the ball. A lot of times he'd put his head down, fantastic runner, he'd get the 8 or 10 yards, take a shot, but maybe there's somebody downfield. And even when you watch Aaron Rodgers, who can run, he's not a great runner, but obviously he has that ability to look down the field while he's moving in the pocket. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you look Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, he's a big kid. For some reason, he has this innate ability to extend a play. But he's not a great runner.
Yeah.
But he does just enough to make the people crazy. But to your point, Mike, he just keep his eyes downfield to be able to get that last second throw. So.
This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brew House. We'll be back. The Press Box, brought to you in part by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. Call 262-COMP, C-O-M-P, today. The Buffalo Bills quote of the week was brought to you by the Rochester Geico office. Give the Rochester Geico team a chance to see how much you could save on all your insurance needs. Call or stop by the office on West Henrietta Road, open Monday through Saturday. Our Geico Rochester quote of the week, the great and powerful owner of the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I'm sure they are working hard. There is some dysfunction. Now, he's the owner of the team. I'm sure he believes, and he's privy, the word that was big in the Doug Whaley news conference, to all the information. But the perception is there's dysfunction in the league, and I think that has what has hurt this franchise, at least right now, the perception. The way they can change that, get everything right, get everybody in place, and, oh, by the way, start winning football games, and then you'll be looked at.
Far easier said than done. This portion of the Rochester Press Box is brought to you by Connors and Ferris. So we talk Buffalo Bills. Are we in any better shape a week later? I mean, we were all pretty down on the way things were being handled last week.
Everything changes day by day. Everything is changing every single day, right? It went from Tyrod's coming back, why would you not have him, to the Bills are moving on from Tyrod Taylor, to we're going to get Deshaun Watson at number 10, to now Deshaun Watson's going to get drafted 3rd overall. I can't handle this anymore, Bill. I need something solid. Now we hear, hey, maybe Mike McCoy's going to come be the offensive coordinator at Buffalo, which means coming with him will be Phillip Rivers, who doesn't want to move to Los Angeles. So there goes a 3rd or 4th round pick. So you can have a bridge guy into his second thing. I don't know what's going on, Bill. I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. I'm getting anxiety over it.
Well, that's why we have you on the panel.
Yeah, we have a heart attack.
Speaking of being uncomfortable, how comfortable will you be with Phillip Rivers, who never curses, by the way?
You know, he says he never curses. You know, it's like those Southern televangelists, right? And you find out there's stuff going on. You know there's stuff going on with Phillip Rivers. You know.
Billy, we've been talking quarterbacks the whole first segment. We've got Tyrod Taylor, who's going to be a subject of debate for as long as he's got the chance of wearing a Buffalo Bills uniform. What do you think of him?
I like him personally. I think he's done some good things on the field. I mean, at the end of the day, like Mike said, you got to win. You know, I think there was a lot of moving parts this year. I really, 2 years ago, I liked the hire of Rex. I thought he would bring some pizzazz to the team, and I think at some point it came unglued where I think he lost control of the locker room where, and that trickled to a number of, every facet of the game, and that was kind of unfortunate. I mean, I like what he brings to the table. Is he a head coach? I don't know. Maybe he's just a coordinator. But, getting back to Tyrod, I think he's done some really good stuff. He's had some challenges because they had some injuries. I mean, look at the wide receiver situation early in the season. It's not like he had a lot to work with. So it'll be interesting to see what happens because of his contract coming up. What are they going to do? There's uncertainty with obviously seeking out a new coach. So, you got to have that marriage work well for the teams to be successful, meaning the marriage between the coach and the quarterback. So
like you're the GM.
Yeah.
Bring him back.
Here's the issue I have with it. It's not just the money. Everybody talks about the money, which is true. But when you commit the money, you commit the time to him, too. It's like drafting a guy really high. Everything in the organization goes around the quarterback. Now, again, is your plan to restructure a deal for him, make him the guy that's in place, and then draft another quarterback with the hope that that person takes over eventually? I guess you could go there. Is that make sense for them? You could do worse than Tyrod as your starting quarterback.
You can't restructure the deal because there will be some teams stupid enough to give him the $27 to $30 million that he's guaranteed in Buffalo. You have to give him what he has. His agent will not take any restructured deal, so it's either give him the money or let him walk.
Well, I agree that he shouldn't. It depends on what circumstance he's going to walk into. You're right. There are teams that have nobody, and Tyrod may look like a nice option coming in, and they think they have the pieces around him to make it work. So it'll depend, but obviously, even if he is coming in, I think they still have to have another long-range plan because I don't know what the ceiling is for him.
Is the way they handled him the last game of the season, coming off his best game, 300 yards passing, and then benching him, does that remain an issue as far as
I was in the locker room the day after, and that was a guy who was hurt. And we can say, oh, come on, they're paying you all this money. He's still a guy. He still has an ego. He still put his health on the line playing for that team. And the biggest issue wasn't, they benched him. It really probably wasn't going to have an impact. They didn't talk to him. Nobody sat down like an adult and said to him, this is why we're doing it. This is what we want to do. We want you healthy. We want to make a legitimate argument for you. We'll decide when we have a coach. Or we want you to be healthy to go somewhere else. As an adult, his answer was, they sort of talked to me, and then it was it. I was benched. And I just think we can pretend that people don't have egos in that way. He earned a starting job, and they pulled it out for no reason at all.
That has to be fixed, right?
Well, that's part of the business of it all, because I remember even in college where, I was fighting for a starting spot, and I'm walking, Todd Philcox and I were fighting for a starting spot, and I'm walking by a newscast where they announced Todd was going to start. That's how I found out. So I'm like, okay, so to the point of sit down and, let's talk about it. At that level, it's a business.
It is, but
however, I think he was hurt by that.
Well, in your case, though, you're a college student, you're on scholarship, you're there, and especially when you played, you didn't really have much of a voice towards the coaches.
No, right.
He's a guy who, what Pat's saying is, could have other options everywhere, and you'd think, would it really be something like that makes you go, I don't want to renegotiate, I don't want to do anything? It could be, because he's hurt. Yeah. I hate to say it that way, but he is.
This portion of the Rochester Press Box brought to you by Connors and Ferris. Like it or not, next. The Press Box Trivia Question brought to you by Sleep City. Queen adjustable bed with memory foam mattress, now $977. Save over $500. Shop Rochester's only locally owned mattress store. No pressure, no hassle sales experience. Here's a look at the Press Box Trivia answer brought to you by Sleep City. Queen adjustable bed with memory foam mattress. Now $977. You save over $500. Shop Rochester's only locally owned mattress store. No pressure, no hassle sales experience. See New York in a whole new way. Amtrak is offering a 15% discount for all travel inside New York State and to Montreal. Visit Amtrak.com for the See New York discount. Safe, comfortable, affordable, and easy. Amtrak. Enjoy the journey. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box. This portion brought to you by Amtrak Trains. Like it or not, this isn't really a like it or not because I don't think any of us really like it, but the demise of the Western New York women's soccer team, the Flag.
I'm not going to say I like it, but it's almost a relief. And let me put it this way. Sports is entertainment, right? We watch the NFL or the NBA or the NHL or Major League Baseball because it entertains me. And somewhere along the line over the last couple of years, especially with women's soccer and Hope Solo, the goalie, it became a social issue. Like, you have to watch women's soccer because, well, we're really good at it too, so it makes you sexist and misogynistic if you don't like it. Even though, personally, for me, it wasn't entertaining. I have nothing against those women. They're world-class athletes. Abby Wambach, one of the most spectacular athletes you've ever seen. I just don't find it entertaining, and it's kind of a relief now that this team is not in Rochester anymore. I don't have to put on a face like, hey, because listen, I've spent money. I tried. I spent money, and I went down to the park, and I watched them play, and it just wasn't for me. And when I would say that, I would get these looks like, oh, how dare you? You like men's sports, you don't like female sports.
You know what is not said in this? First of all, the women's national team is an entertaining product that people enjoy watching and going to. But when they separate on individual teams, it didn't get the support. And the players would be lying to you if they didn't say they didn't respect the league as players as much. They would dump and ditch and go to the national team, and this is the way it works. And they'd had the league there when they need it, not necessarily because they need, when they needed it when they weren't playing on the national team. And I think they all play more for the national team than they do for the league. And the Flash here locally, I guess I'll say they tried. I didn't think they do a phenomenal job marketing, and the players based in Buffalo, I think it was doomed kind of from the start, or certainly from the start of once Abby left, and I'm not surprised at all. I feel for the fans, but there weren't that many of them.
Billy, like it or not, Doug Marrone gets a head coaching job 3 years removed from the Bills, walking out on him.
I think it's a good spot for him, to be honest with you. I mean, I think he was assistant head coach down there and taking care of the offensive line.
That was the nicest way to say offensive line assistant head coach.
Yeah, exactly. He was the O-line coach, but they said, oh, by the way, just to make him feel good, because everybody's got an ego at that point, right? But
he was hired as a coach in waiting.
Yes, exactly. So I don't know. That franchise has to glue some things together too, and I think, he's there. He's been there. He kind of gets the logistics of what needs to be done, I think, having been there for a year or two now. I like Doug. I know Doug. I know sometimes he doesn't come across that personable in the press and the meetings and things like that. He's kind of a very focused grinder kind of guy. I think he's a coach, and oh, by the way, you also have these other duties where you have to meet with the press and do all this other stuff. But I think it's a good spot for him, and I think it's a good land for the franchise.
Yeah, maybe we can let bygones be bygones and stop hating on this guy.
No, that's not going to happen. I think
This portion of the Rochester Press Box is brought to you by Amtrak Trains. Enjoy the journey. Unfinished Business is next. The Press Box Stat of the Week brought to you by Fiondoc and Fiondoc. Remember, if you've made the wrong choice, it's time to make the right choice. Fiondoc and Fiondoc, New York's DWI leader for over 35 years. Visit nydwi.com. Brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts, the official coffee of the NHL. America runs on Dunkin'. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box. This is Unfinished Business, brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Pat, start us off.
The hardest thing to do is be the guy in front of the guy, right? E.J. Manuel was the guy in front of the guy. First overall pick, all this fanfare, or first round pick, all this fanfare, and in comes Tyrod to do what E.J. couldn't do. And you're almost always doomed forever when that happens, except it's starting to turn for one guy in Buffalo, Sam Reinhart. Earlier this week, the Philadelphia Flyers fall to the Buffalo Sabres, and Sam Reinhart has a 3-point night, goal and 2 assists. And he's got 5 power play goals of the 8 goals that he scored so far. Former second overall pick, but everyone forgets that because the year after, in comes Jack Eichel, the savior of this franchise. And people start to get down on Sam Reinhart because he's not Jack Eichel, just like it's getting down on Mike Catalana because he's not Chris Berman. He never had that talent, and he never would. My point is this. It is good to see a kid who was dejected for 2 seasons, didn't have the rookie year that you thought he was a little skinny, and then gets overshadowed by Jack Eichel, coming on and being a legitimate player for a team that has potential to do something in the bottom of a playoff race if things go the way they're supposed to. It never happens this way, but fingers crossed, Sam Reinhart becomes that hockey player that contributes in a way that his second overall pick should.
You think he will?
I hope so. I mean, the NHL is weird. It's littered with these top 5 picks that just become role players on teams and bounce around. I mean, the perfect example, David Legmont.
Yes.
It was Chris Berman would have knew that.
Bill, you're up.
Unfinished business. Syracuse University football 2017. Well, in 2016, I think the hopes were high with Coach Beavers coming in. New offense, inside the dome, throwing the ball, put up a lot of points, only won 4 games. So I think the unfinished business for the Orange, what can Coach Beavers do in the second year? We've had some recruits leave that were on the roster to kind of clean out, making room for the players that Coach Beavers wants. So we'll see how things play out in 2017 as they go forward to try to get to a bowl game. And I think, quite honestly, if they can get to a bowl game, that's a successful season in Central New York right now. And because there's 115 bowl games, I think that should not be an unrealistic goal.
Talking about getting a window to get things done, I'm going to talk about an NBA team. and doing it the wrong way, and that would be the New York Knicks. This past week, Derrick Rose decided he had a family issue, and that may be true, but didn't think it was important enough to call anybody or text anybody with the team to let him know, and eventually the word leaked out, and the next day he came back, and then he was fined, and he was back with the team. But it just goes to the problems of the way they've run things in New York. There's two ways to get it to work in the NBA. You have to really be good, go out and get a superstar or have a superstar and be a team, say like the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron, or you got to get bad, figure out a way to do it, like my 76ers, and try to get good young players and build it up. You don't do it the way the Knicks did, a bunch of overpaid, overrated players to be a mediocre team and to go nowhere. They are getting what Phil Jackson paid for, which is to sit back, think you're going to bring big stars in, and tell everybody at Madison Square Garden they should pay big numbers for those tickets. They're below 500. They're not good. They're not going anywhere, and they're paying too much money. Derrick Rose, sort of the symbol of what Phil Jackson has built or not built in New York.
And how do you really feel?
Don't like it.
That's our show. Thank you very much for joining us, Bill Scharr. Appreciate it. We'll have you back. That was good.
Glad to be here.
Mike, thank you.
Thank you.
And in the Rochester Jefferson's garb, Pat Duffy, thank you very much. And thank you once again for joining us. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.